Forgiveness, written by Stephen Levine, From Healing into Life and Death, read by Vincent Bagnall. The beginning of the path of healing is the end of life unlived. As awareness deepens, each moment is received anew. Entering the process as complete beginners, we take each breath as though it were the first, watching each thought as though it were the last, becoming wholly alive. Recognizing that to finish business means the end of relationships as business, not a totaling of accounts, not awaiting another's acceptance or forgiveness. We cultivate compassion. When we have touched another with forgiveness, we no longer require anything in return. Our business is done. One of the first steps on the path of healing is the deepening of forgiveness. Indeed, after awareness has brought us to the path of healing, it is forgiveness that softens the path and allows continued progress. As awareness becomes yet subtler, able to discern even the muffled whispers of the mind, we are confronted with what a dying musician friend called the unfinished symphony. The dreams and longings that have played themselves out unabated just beneath the surface of our worldly persona. The unfilled, the uncompleted, the oft resented inheritance of a life only partially lived. Many, coming upon long unresolved issues and old holdings, find it difficult to simply let go. The holding around the unresolved, the unapproached, has become so cramped close that it seems to take considerable effort to soften it back to its natural openness. But forgiveness acts almost as a kind of lubricant to allow the yet held to slip lightly away. Indeed, in theory, it would be ideal to just let go of heavy states such as resentment or fear or guilt, but in practice we discover that the considerable momentum of our identification with such feelings is not so easily dispersed. Before we are fully able to just be mindful of such feelings, to just let them be without the least tendency to cling or condemn, it may well be necessary to deepen the practice of forgiveness, to actualize the potential for letting go that the open-handed acceptance of forgiveness offers upon meeting the gavel-fisted judgment of the often unkind mind. It is in passing through the holdings around the heart that the power of forgiveness becomes most evident. Forgiveness allows us to let go of the curtains of resentment, the filters to life that have kept us so lost in the mind. Forgiveness softens the clinging and allows our holdings to sink a bit more deeply into the healing heart. Cultivating forgiveness daily softens our life. It holds the possibility of freedom from the ancient incarcerations of the judging mind. Forgiveness allows anger to float in a merciful awareness. It makes room for life. It is the nature of the unobstructed heart which dissolves separation and allows mercy and awareness to go beyond the conditioned. It is a cultivation in the mind of the spaciousness of the heart. The traditional manner of practicing forgiveness is to first extend it to someone you have some resentment for, and to touch them with the possibility of forgiveness. Secondly, you picture another who is unforgiving toward you, and you reach out with an openness to be forgiven and a willingness to let go of the unfinished business of the past, which separated your two hearts. Then lastly, forgiveness is sent to oneself. Truly, we have been waiting for our whole life to hear, "I love you," in our own voice. One cannot deeply receive love from another until they have received it from themselves. Indeed, the Buddha said that no matter how hard one searched, one could not find anyone in the universe more deserving of love than oneself. Practicing the meditation for 15 minutes a day seems to broaden the path of healing and allow a bit more easy going. In working with each of these meditations, our own natural wisdom recognizes yet other levels at which we may enter our healing, using our own great genius to guide us. Though the forgiveness meditation is very powerful in the form it has most usually been practiced, we discover yet another aspect of its healing when we begin to send forgiveness directly into the center of discomfort. It is to touch with forgiveness that which we have so often touched with condemnation and profound resentment, which allows the miracle of healing, of balance, to enter fully into each moment, into life itself. All such practices are adapted to our immediate needs, seeing with soft eyes the next appropriate step. Relying on nothing of the past, we enter profoundly into what is needed as it is needed, the ocean of awareness dissolving our footsteps behind us, leaving no trace, but only the ground beneath our feet. This very instant in which all that we have ever sought is to be found. So we direct forgiveness into each moment of mind and body experience. We do not lean toward or pull back from any aspect of the mind. Nothing is hindrance. We are learning to keep our heart open in hell. So we see that cultivating forgiveness is a skillful quality to finish business, to soften the clingings of the mind and open the holdings of the body so that a conduit can be established between the heart and the disheartened. Directing forgiveness into the body, the resistances to life dissolve, pain diminishing, healing permeating to the center of each cell. The practice of forgiveness opens the mind to the natural compassion of the heart. Practiced daily, it allows ancient clingings to dissolve. But in the beginning, forgiveness may have something of an odd quality about it. One needs first to recognize that guilt arises uninvited. It is important to use forgiveness not as a means of squashing guilt, or even up-leveling the unforgiveness of another, but as a means of dissolving obstructions. At first, one may feel they did nothing wrong, so why ask for or send forgiveness? But emotions are not so rational. They have a life of their own. We ask for forgiveness and offer forgiveness not because of some imagined wrongdoing, but because we no longer wish to carry the load of our resentments and guilts. To allow the mind to sink into the heart, to let go and get on with it. If at first forgiveness feels a little awkward, please remember that forgiveness is not a condoning of the unskillful act which has caused injury, but a touching of the actor with mercy and loving kindness. We cannot condone rape, but we may in time be able to touch the rapist with some understanding, lessening our own fear, opening our life a bit more. Forgiveness benefits oneself, not just another. Although we may open our hearts to another, it is a means of letting ourselves back into our own heart. Indeed, forgiveness may be felt across hundreds of miles and even acknowledged, but that's not the primary purpose of this meditation. In fact, to wait for such acknowledgement is an example of how we continue unfinished business. Forgiveness finishes business by letting go of the armoring which separates one heart from another. As one teacher said, as long as there are two, there is unfinished business. When the two become one, the heart whispers to itself in every direction. In the deepest stages of forgiveness, one finds there is no other to send forgiveness toward, but just a sense of being shared. The one mind, the one heart in which we all float. Then, as in unconditional love, there's not a forgiveness for another, but forgiveness with another. Many years ago, during a very difficult time in my life, sitting very alone by a pond in a redwood forest, practicing the forgiveness meditation, the practicer disappeared, and all became forgiveness. The trees were forgiveness, the boulders, the pond, the salamander crawling across my sneaker. The world became an all-accepting love, and in my mind, a voice whispered that I was forgiven for everything I had ever done. To which the mind responded, "Oh, but that's not possible. There's been so much." To which the heart replied, "You are completely forgiven. It is all done. If you want to pick it up again, that's up to you, but it's all yours from now on." How difficult it was to accept, to allow such an enormous forgiveness into my heart. And how healing. Let me share with you a few examples of individuals who found the application of the forgiveness meditation a skillful means toward healing. Chuck was a young fellow whose shoulders were slumped so far forward when we met him that his body resembled a question mark. He was bent under the strain of great resistance and guilt. I have a brother who is kind of nuts. On a couple occasions he's carved himself up real badly, cut off his penis and stuff like that. Almost bled to death twice. He's been in and out of mental institutions for years. The last time he was out, he moved to where I was living, and he would call me every day and tell me about the hell he was living in. For an hour or so every day I would talk to him, but his pain was more than either of us could bear. There was nothing I could do but sit with his awful torment and be there. I was really beyond my edge. I finally got an answering machine and would listen to all his messages as they came through. Sometimes he would call 8, 9, 10 times an hour, and I would just be sitting there with a bottle of Jack Daniels, feeling so awfully guilty for not being able to help more, and would get drunk. I didn't know what else to do. Having experienced the forgiveness meditation for the first time during a workshop, he sensed the possibilities of a healing. He said that toward the end of the meditation, a shudder ran through him as he saw the cold-heartedness with which he related to himself and others. This load of anger at myself for being so inadequate and useless. With minimal instruction, he took on a daily forgiveness practice, forgiving my brother's craziness and my intolerance toward all the pain I have inside. He said that as he began to relate to his pain instead of from it. With a forgiving softness, he began to recognize how the path of the Spirit is such a creative one, and began to trust himself and sense what was right for him. I never trust myself like that. I've always treated myself kind of like an unwelcome stranger. So when I begin to send forgiveness to myself, it's easy to see myself as someone else in pain, and that little bit of space gives me room to forgive. As his meditations continued, his body slowly began to straighten. As the forgiveness sank deeper, he saw himself not as the other, but as the mind, suffering to be free, and he began to let go of the past. Ever so slightly, his ability to bless and learn from his pain increased. About a month into the practice, he said, I think I'll continue with this meditation for some time. It might actually allow me to come home, to step back into the living room and sit down to share supper with my agonized family. Mary had been doing the meditation about 6 months when we met her. At first, it put me straight in touch with how helpless I felt about all the wrongs done to me and all the wrongs I've done to others. But she said that as she continued the practice, she was gradually able to make room for helplessness, to touch it with forgiveness, and to explore its nooks and crannies. She said that in time, the state of mind of helplessness no longer made her feel helpless. That whenever that feeling of helplessness arose, her heart seemed naturally to go into a rhythm of forgiveness. I used to be so afraid of being helpless that I felt paralyzed, but when forgiveness touched this helplessness, all the urgency went out of it. She said that she believed she would never be overcome by helplessness again, because there's always something I can do about it. I can always open to how it is right now. Describing the slow unfolding of this practice, she said, "Sometimes this meditation works better than at others, but it always puts me in touch with the value of forgiveness. It usually shows me what blocks me. Sometimes it's so difficult to forgive someone because I have so much anger at them. I guess it's just pride. But forgiveness has taught me to let things be a little bit more. And I have to go through that anger gently and remind myself that I'm doing this meditation, this forgiveness for me, not for someone else. I wouldn't be at all surprised if others benefit from my forgiveness, but primarily I do it for me, and my life has been a lot easier lately." Dorothy had been sexually abused as a child. When the meditation was first offered to her, she didn't feel quite ready for it. "I don't know if I'm ready to let go of my anger." She trusted herself enough to realize that she didn't have to forgive anyone, but she felt the cage about her life tightening. Watching others about her, who had similarly been abused as children, working with the forgiveness, meditation, letting go of levels upon levels of holding and fear, of anger and self-hatred, she began to sense the release possible in the practice. Encouraging her to trust herself deeply, we suggested that she use the forgiveness meditation as an experiment in truth, to discover for herself whatever use, if any, this technique might be for her particular predicament. Giving herself a kindness she had seldom known, she trusted her process sufficiently to just take a mini step over her fear and anger into the possibilities of forgiveness. She did not jump headlong into the deep ocean of a profound inner injury, but instead waded in just this much, ever so slowly, wakefully. A few weeks into the experimenting with the meditation, she related to us an experience that, she said, blew my mind and mended my heart. Comprehending the skillfulness of starting slowly, she had been sending forgiveness into the slight injuries and many tyrants she had known, when all of a sudden her father came toward her in her mind. My mind said, "I don't want to forgive him." There he was, sitting in his old chair in the living room. My mind said, "I don't want to forgive him." There he was, sitting in his old chair in the living room. I was sitting in front of him, and I had a knife. And I just began to stab him. I stabbed him everywhere. And then my mind, sensing this was a safe arena for experimentation, said, "Why don't you just try it, Dorothy? Just try it." So I said, "I forgive you." And all of a sudden it just flooded into me. He was sitting there and he just started crying. It was really beautiful. He asked me to get up on his lap. My first response was, "Are you kidding?" And then my mind said, "Oh, just try it." So I got up on his lap and he just held me. I was just a little girl with her father. I couldn't believe it. It was so healthy. Astonished that her father could be touched by the possibility of forgiveness so easily, it occurred to her that there was yet someone else who she was more frightened of. It was the nasty father in her, the judge. So she asked the judge to have some forgiveness. I really get myself coming and going. Somehow everything's always my fault, but I felt it was worth a try. Surprisingly enough, the judge didn't judge me for asking his forgiveness. In fact, I had a feeling he wanted to be forgiven. Although in future sittings she found her father was not always so easily forgiven, each moment of such forgiveness was a moment of healing. About a month later, now deeply into the practice, she shared with us her experiences of meeting the baby she had aborted some years before. My first response was to withdrawal. I had been told to talk to it before, but I was never ready. But I heard it, and we talked many times, and it forgave me. It told me that it loved me, and it told me that what I did was okay. It was remarkable. And when it said, "Forgive yourself," I began to see myself as that little infant, so in need of protection and care. And I sent myself that love. I forgave myself for never, ever being enough. My whole body began to glow. Then at times it was like I was floating in the universe, just loving the world, and the world was just so different. I felt such peace. And there is still healing work to be done, because it scares me a little to share all this with you, just because. The injury done to Dorothy may take years to heal, but each day is a day of being closer to her true nature. Samuel, dying at age 86, after a life in which his main preoccupation had been commerce, spoke of his death in terms of a business deal. Having been almost obsessively involved with making his small factory a success, much of his family life had been pushed aside to concentrate on his goal. He had few friends. His drive to be a business success had resulted in a good deal of unfinished business. Having had 3 small strokes within the month, having died on the emergency room table, and then been revived, he said, "I've got the strangest feeling that I'll be going out of business very soon." The suggestion that he forgive those he mumbled were bastards and son of bitches, he had at first refused, saying they had done him wrong and had earned his anger. But then sometimes, when forgiveness was mentioned, a soft smile would spread across his face, and he would say, "I guess you are right. What is the use? Now it only aggravates me." For most, finishing business usually means the end of relationships as business. But for Samuel, whose obsession with business kept him ever distant, having exchanged business for relationships, the finishing of business meant the end of business as relationships. Taking his metaphor of going out of business for death, I spoke with him in terms of balancing the ledger in a way that seemed to focus him on the possibility of forgiving others, and perhaps even acknowledging that he too might wish to be forgiven, suggesting he no longer needed to merchandise his life, that his business had succeeded and no longer needed all of his attention. I spoke to him in loving terms of merger. "It looks like you are being bought out by the man upstairs." And he smiled his loving smile, dreaming of a penthouse office with his name in gold on the door. In the days that followed, aiding Samuel in his life review, commenting again and again on how sympathetically he had done business, what honest commerce he had purveyed, a certain trust and confidence in the life just past could be seen in the increasingly deep receptiveness of his gaze. Although the word forgiveness was not one he was altogether comfortable with, that quality of spaciousness became very attractive. "What am I knocking myself out for with all this business? Maybe it's time to retire." His anger at the past was dissolving. Having had another stroke and gone into a coma, he awakened for a moment one afternoon, looking straight into my eyes, and said, "You will pardon me if it takes a little while to transact business with the Lord. He runs the place, but I think we can do business." And he resumed his coma with a smile. Lenny was dying of AIDS when we met. Having already practiced the forgiveness meditation with a gay consciousness group for some time, he approached us for further instruction. We met every few days to meditate together and deepen his trust in the process. Very quickly, his practice deepened to an all-encompassing compassion. He was ripe. His heart burst open. I feel this meditation is a key part of my healing. It helped me find a way through the anger. It is one of the few processes I've ever been through that acknowledges the anger without making it worse or having to hide it. It gave me confidence that there is a way out of this pain. If I had tried this 10 years ago, I probably would have thought I had to forgive myself for being gay. Even 5 years ago, I probably would have thought I had to forgive myself for getting AIDS. But now, I think I can just forgive the AIDS. I mean, to send forgiveness into this situation, which has changed my whole life, is really exciting. I don't know where this forgiveness thing will take me, but I am willing to go, because I don't know when life begins, and I don't know when it ends. But I know that the opportunity to tell the truth is spectacular, and forgiveness takes me closer to that. And I know that gay men are exquisite, sensitive, beautiful, vulnerable, loving, tender, generous men who are now dying with very little forgiveness from others or for themselves. Lenny now offers free forgiveness workshops in the gay community. It's been 5 years since his original diagnosis. Carolyn began the forgiveness practice about 2 years ago. About 6 weeks into it, she was drawn to a daily mindfulness meditation, which has brought considerable healing into her life. At first, the harder I tried to forgive, the guiltier I felt for not being very forgiving. But then I realized I was being too hard on myself and really didn't have to forgive that fellow who raped my sister. So she started focusing on the little insults that often caused her to close and watched, fascinated, as her capacity for forgiveness gradually increased. Now at times I can forgive that fellow, but the meditation hasn't made me stupid. I'm not about to go back and knock on his door and tell him so. Her forgiveness did not condone rape. She forgave the actor, not the action. She said she had learned to forgive the cruel, but saw no reason to forgive cruelty. I was so outraged when my sister got raped that I just hated this world, and I wanted to kill the guy, but forgiveness helps a lot. In fact, now I can find that I can even forgive God. And I often can feel her arms around me. I have never felt less alone. I have never been happier. Forgiveness is a miracle. A forgiveness meditation. Begin to reflect for a moment on what the word forgiveness might mean. What is forgiveness? What might it be to bring forgiveness into one's life, into one's mind? Begin by slowly bringing into your mind, into your heart, the image of someone for whom you have some resentment. Gently allow a picture, a feeling, a sense of them to gather there, just for this moment. Gently now invite them into your heart. Notice whatever fear or anger may arise to limit or deny their entrance, and soften gently all about it. No force, just an experiment in truth, which invites this person in. And silently in your heart say to this person, I forgive you. Open to a sense of their presence and say, I forgive you for whatever pain you may have caused me in the past, intentionally or unintentionally, through your words, your thoughts, your actions, however you may have caused me pain in the past. I forgive you. Feel for even a moment the spaciousness relating to that person with the possibility of forgiveness. Let go of those walls, those curtains of resentment, so that your heart may be free, so that your life may be lighter. I forgive you for whatever you may have done. That caused me pain, intentionally or unintentionally. Through your actions, through your words, even through your thoughts. Through whatever you did. through whatever you didn't do. However the pain came to me through you, I forgive you. I forgive you. It is so painful to put someone out of your heart. Let go of that pain. Let them be touched for this moment at least with the warmth of your forgiveness. I forgive you. I forgive you. Allow that person to just be there in the stillness, in the warmth and patience of the heart. Let them be forgiven. Let the distance between you dissolve in mercy and compassion. Let it be so. Now, having finished so much business, dissolved in forgiveness, allow that being to go on their way. Not pushing or pulling them from the heart, but simply letting them be on their own way, touched by a blessing and the possibility of your forgiveness. And now, gently, giving yourself whatever time is necessary, allow the other person to dissolve as you invite another in. Now gently bring into your mind, into your heart, the image, the sense of someone who has resentment for you. Someone whose heart is closed to you. Notice whatever limits their entrance and soften all about that hardness. Let it float. Mercifully invite them into your heart and say to them, I ask your forgiveness. I ask your forgiveness. I ask to be let back into your heart, that you forgive me for whatever I may have done in the past that caused you pain, intentionally or unintentionally, through my words, my actions, even through my thoughts. However I may have hurt or injured you, whatever confusion, whatever fear of mind caused you pain, I ask your forgiveness. And allow yourself to be touched by their forgiveness. Allow yourself to be forgiven. Allow yourself back into their heart. Have mercy on you. Have mercy on them. Allow them to forgive you. Feel their forgiveness touch you. Receive it. Draw it into your heart. I ask your forgiveness for however I may have caused you pain in the past, through my anger, through my lust, through my fear, my ignorance, my blindness, my doubt, my confusion. However I may have caused you pain, I ask that you let me back into your heart. I ask your forgiveness. Let it be. Allow yourself to be forgiven. If the mind attempts to block forgiveness with merciless indictments, recriminations, judgments, just see the nature of the unkind mind. See how merciless we are with ourselves. And let this unkind mind be touched by the warmth and patience of forgiveness. Let your heart touch this other heart so that it may receive forgiveness. So that it may feel whole again. Let it be so. Feel their forgiveness now as it touches you.